The muddy stranger in the rain. The rain poured from the dark sky like the heavens were crying. Cold wind howled across the broken cargo station on the edge of the forest. Ethan, a lone human traveler, had taken shelter under an old metal roof. His small fire flickered weakly. He wrapped his coat tighter and listened to the rain. He was on a supply run, alone, again. That was how he liked it. No one to worry about, no one to talk to. But then, he heard something. A soft sound, like a weak cough. Then a thud. He turned his head slowly. At first he thought it was a pile of trash, mud, weeds, sticks. But then, it moved. He stood up. There, on the edge of the hill just past the rusted crates, was someone. Lying half in the mud, not moving much. The body was small, thin, covered in thick dirt and rain. He stepped closer, slowly. It wasn't a human. It was a girl. An alien girl. She was young, maybe his age, maybe less. She had no clothes on. Only mud covered her skin. Her long hair was soaked and tangled. Her body was shaking from the cold. He knelt beside her. "Hey," he said gently. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes were open but dull. She didn't answer. Ethan looked around. No one, no footsteps, no camp, nothing. She had been here for a long time. He took off his coat and carefully covered her. She flinched. "Hey, it's okay," he said, hands up. "I won't hurt you." Her lips moved. No sound came. He tried again. "Can you walk?" She blinked. Her hand twitched but didn't lift. Ethan looked back at the camp, just 20 steps away. He had a heat lamp, some water, and a few protein bars. He had a choice. Leave her, or help her. He chose. Gently, he lifted her in his arms. She was so light, like carrying bones wrapped in skin. Her head rested against his chest, but her body stayed tense like a hunted animal. Back at his camp, he placed her near the heat lamp. He didn't try to clean her or ask questions. First, warmth. Then food. He opened a water bottle and placed it near her lips. "Drink," he whispered. She didn't move. He touched the bottle to her lips. She flinched again, but then sipped. One gulp. Then another. Her hands trembled as she took the bottle and drank slowly. Her eyes still watched him like a trapped creature. Next, he broke a protein bar in half and handed her a piece. She took it and ate like she hadn't eaten in days. After a few minutes, Ethan sat back. Rain still hit the roof. Thunder echoed, far away. She finished the bar and held the wrapper close to her chest like it was something valuable. Ethan spoke again, softer this time. "Do you have a name?" Silence. "Where are you from?" Still silence. She pulled the coat tighter and curled into a ball. She looked tired, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Then, her eyes met his. Not angry, not hateful, just afraid. He nodded once and didn't ask again. She needed safety, not questions. That night, Ethan stayed awake. He sat near the fire, watching the storm and listening to her breathing. She didn't speak, but she didn't run either. At one point, she started to cry in her sleep. Very softly, like the sound of breaking glass. He didn't wake her. He just watched. In the morning, when the rain stopped, Ethan stepped outside. The world was wet and silent. Birds returned. The clouds moved. He turned back to the girl. She was still there, wrapped in his coat. Her eyes open now, but distant. He gave her another protein bar. This time she took it with both hands. He smiled gently. "You're safe now." She said nothing, but her eyes softened. Just a little. That was enough. Ethan woke before sunrise. The fire had burned low and the cold crept into the small shelter. He sat up and turned to check on the girl. She was still curled up, wrapped in his coat, sleeping lightly. Her hands clutched the empty food wrapper like it was treasure. He didn't wake her. Instead, he stepped outside. The sky was still dark, but the rain had stopped. The air was damp, quiet, and filled with the smell of wet earth. Ethan walked a few steps and looked around again. Still no signs of other people. Still no footprints. Just broken crates, scattered branches, and silence. But something didn't sit right with him. Why was she out here? Alone? When he came back, the girl was awake. She sat up quickly, eyes wide, like she thought he had left her forever. He shook his head gently. "It's okay, I was just outside, you're safe." She looked down again, silent. Her long silver hair, now dry in patches, fell over her face. Her skin still had lines of dirt and mud. Ethan knelt beside her with a soft cloth and a small bowl of warm water. "I'm just going to clean your hands," he said softly. "Only if it's okay." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she nodded. Ethan gently took one of her hands. It was small, cold. The skin was bruised and scraped. He wiped carefully. The mud came off, so did the blood. But what made him freeze were the scars. Around both her wrists were deep, dark lines, old wounds. He looked closer. These weren't from an accident. These were from chains. His heart sank. He looked up at her face. She was watching him, not blinking, not crying, just waiting. Like she expected pain again. He didn't say anything. He just gave her hand back and looked down. "You don't have to tell me what happened," he said gently. "But I know someone hurt you." She didn't answer, but her shoulders shook just once, like a silent sob she held inside. Ethan turned his back and gave her space. He set out some more water and another food bar, then walked outside again, letting her be alone. While walking along the edge of the shelter, he found a torn piece of cloth half buried in the mud. It looked like part of a dress or a uniform. Alien writing was printed on the edge. Ethan couldn't read it, but he knew one thing. It was ripped off, not removed, torn. This girl had escaped something terrible. Back inside, he heard a soft noise. The girl had tried to stand but stumbled and fell back with a quiet cry. Ethan rushed to help but stopped when she raised her hand to stop him. She took a breath. Tried again. This time she stood. Her legs shook. Her knees were weak. But she stood. She looked around the shelter, then at Ethan. She pointed to her back. He didn't understand. She turned slowly and let the coat fall. Ethan's heart dropped. Her back was covered in long, deep scars. Not just one or two. Dozens old whip marks, burn spots, scratches that healed the wrong way. She had been punished, tortured, repeatedly. He stepped forward slowly and picked the coat back up, gently wrapping it around her again. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. But her eyes, her big broken eyes, looked right into his. It was the first time she truly saw him. Not as a threat, but as someone who wasn't going to hurt her. That evening, they sat by the fire. She didn't talk, but she didn't hide anymore either. Her body was still tense, still unsure, but she stayed beside him. Ethan offered her a blanket and gave her space. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. But inside, his mind raced. Who did this to her? Where had she come from? And most of all, was someone coming back to get her? That night, as the stars returned to the sky, Ethan heard her whisper something. He turned, surprised. She said it again, barely a whisper. "Sierra." He leaned closer. "Your name?" She gave the smallest nod. "Sierra." He smiled softly. "Nice to meet you, Sierra." She didn't smile back, but she closed her eyes for the first time and slept without shaking. The morning came slowly. Thin rays of sunlight broke through the clouds and trees, painting the wet ground in pale gold. The forest around the shelter was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan stepped out of the old cargo station and stretched. His muscles were sore from sleeping on metal and dirt. He looked back at the camp. Sierra was still sleeping near the heat lamp, wrapped tightly in the coat. She looked peaceful now, almost like any other girl resting after a hard journey. But Ethan knew the truth. She was no normal girl. She had been chained, beaten, left to die in the mud, and now, someone out there might be looking for her. Ethan walked toward the woods, keeping his boots light on the wet ground. He didn't go far, just enough to collect some dry branches and leaves for the fire. That's when he noticed something strange. Footprints, not his, fresh ones. Leading up to the shelter and then back into the trees. His heart jumped. He dropped the wood quietly and crouched. The prints were big, heavy, three-toed, definitely not human, and definitely not Sierra's. He followed them for a few steps, just enough to see where they led. They circled the camp. Someone had been watching. Last night, while they slept. Ethan rushed back, heart pounding. Sarah was sitting up now, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Ethan's face, she froze. He held a finger to his lips. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "We're not alone." Her eyes widened in fear. Ethan closed the metal door of the station and scanned the area again. The prints had disappeared into the thick trees. Whoever it was gone now. But for how long? Back inside, Sierra was shaking. Not from cold, from fear. Ethan sat beside her. "I think someone's looking for you," he said softly. She nodded slowly. "I need to know," he continued. "Who were you running from?" She hugged her knees and looked away. Her lips trembled. For a long time she said nothing. Then she spoke. Quiet. Broken, but clear. "Hunters," she whispered. "Slavers." Ethan's jaw tightened. She continued, voice full of pain. "I was sold, again, and again. They said I was broken, worthless. They threw me away." Ethan stared at her scars again. They weren't just punishment. They were proof. Proof that someone had treated her like an object, not a person. And now they wanted her back. "Do they know where you are?" Ethan asked. Sarah nodded. "Tracker, inside, my skin." Ethan stood immediately and grabbed his scanner. He scanned her from head to toe. A small blinking light appeared near her collarbone. Under her skin, she wasn't lying. "They'll come," she whispered. "They always come." Ethan's mind raced. He could run, he could leave her. It wasn't his problem. But deep inside he knew he wouldn't do that. He had seen the fear in her eyes, the pain, the way she shook in her sleep. She had trusted him with her life. And now, he had a choice. He walked over to his old toolkit and opened a drawer. Inside was a small surgical knife, a disinfectant bottle, and gloves. He looked at her. "I'm going to remove it." Her eyes widened. "It will hurt," he nodded, "but it'll set you free." Sierra didn't move for a moment. Then slowly, she lay back and exposed the spot near her collarbone. Ethan cleaned the area, put on gloves, and began the small but delicate cut. Sierra clenched her teeth. No screams, no cries, just silent pain. Finally, after a few seconds, the tiny black chip popped out. Ethan crushed it under his boot. The light stopped blinking. Sarah opened her eyes. She looked at him, not just with fear, but something new. "Trust." He smiled. "They won't find you now." But even as he said it, he heard a noise outside. A branch snapped. Then another. Ethan stood, blaster in hand. Sarah sat up, eyes wide again. Outside, in the trees, something moved, big, slow, watching. Ethan held his breath. The sound came again. Slow steps moving through wet leaves outside. Heavy. Careful. He peeked through a crack in the cargo station wall. Shadows danced between the trees. Something or someone was out there, watching, searching. Sarah stayed still behind him, crouched low, her wide silver eyes locked on the door. She didn't speak, didn't blink. Ethan whispered, "Don't move. If they come inside, you crawl out the back, run, don't stop." She nodded once. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, a sharp metal screech. Ethan turned toward the back of the station. The door had been opened, not the front, the back. Before he could move, a bright red flash exploded in the corner of the room. Smoke filled the space. Ethan coughed, trying to see. His blaster was ready, but he couldn't shoot what he couldn't see. A loud, deep voice echoed through the smoke. Alien, harsh, property located. Ethan spun around. "She's not your property." A tall shadow stepped forward, a slaver in dark armor, helmet glowing with red lines. Behind him were two more. They carried shock rods and net guns. Sarah screamed. Ethan fired. One shot hit the eye wall. Another hit one of the men in the arm, sending him backward, but then a net flew, slamming Ethan into the floor. It wrapped tight around his body, sparks jumping across the wires. He couldn't move. "No," Sarah cried out. One of the slavers grabbed her roughly. "She's damaged but still useful," the leader growled. "They'll pay for her. Again." Sarah fought, kicked, scratched, but she was weak, too weak. The slavers shoved her into a metal pod. It locked with a loud clang. One of them looked down at Ethan. "Human, stay out of things you don't understand," he said coldly. "You risk your life for trash." He slammed the back door shut and disappeared into the woods with her. Ethan lay there, stuck in the net, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Rain started again. By the time he got free, it was dark again. The fire was out. The camp was torn apart. Sierra was gone. Ethan sat still for a moment, breathing hard. His body ached, but his heart ached more. She had trusted him. He had promised to protect her, and he had failed. For the first time in years, tears filled his eyes. Not for himself, but for her. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he searched the ground, found one of the slavers' boot prints, and followed it. For hours, he walked through wet trees, over rocks, through thick brush. His blaster stayed in his hand. Then, he found it, a broken-down shuttle, rusted, hidden under vines and old metal sheets. It looked abandoned, but fresh footprints led inside. He stepped quietly. The sound of humming engines filled the air. It wasn't dead. It was warming up. Inside, cages lined the walls. Old, filthy, rusted cages. He moved fast, checking each one. Then he saw her. Sierra. She was locked in a cage near the back, shivering, arms bound. Her lip was bleeding. Her head hung low. "Sarah," Ethan whispered. Her head lifted slowly. Her eyes widened. "Ethan." He didn't hesitate. He shot the lock. The cage door burst open. He caught her in his arms as she fell forward. "I came," he said. "I came back." She tried to speak, but her voice broke into sobs. She wasn't just afraid, she was ashamed. Like she thought he wouldn't return. But he did. He always would. Suddenly behind them, footsteps again. The slaver leader returned, aiming a heavy plasma weapon. "You shouldn't have followed," he growled. "She's mine, you can die with her." Ethan didn't wait. He rolled behind a crate, fired fast. A shot hit the slaver's gun. It exploded in his hands. The man screamed in pain. Ethan ran, grabbing Sarah and pulling her toward the door. But the shuttle shook. It was powering up for launch. They had seconds. He spotted the emergency exit, smashed the release, and dragged Sarah out. Just before the ship lifted, the two of them dove into the mud. The slaver's scream was lost in the noise as the ship burst upward, uncontrolled, damaged, and vanished into the night sky. Back at the shelter, Ethan sat beside the fire again. Sarah lay near him, wrapped in a blanket, She reached out and took his hand. This time no fear, only quiet. "I thought you'd leave me," she whispered. "I couldn't," Ethan said. "You're not just someone I helped. You matter." She squeezed his hand, and for the first time, she smiled. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. Ethan sat by the fire, sharpening his old blade. His blaster lay beside him, fully charged. His eyes were tired but focused. The rain had passed, but danger hadn't. Sarah sat on the other side, still wrapped in a blanket. Her silver hair had been brushed for the first time, though her face still carried bruises. She looked better now, stronger, but deep inside, the fear hadn't fully left her. She glanced up at Ethan. "They'll come again." He didn't answer, right away. He looked into the flames. "I know." Sarah lowered her head. "They always do." Ethan stood. "Then we won't be here when they do." They moved before sunrise. Ethan helped Sarah walk. Her legs were still weak. But she didn't complain. She wore a clean cloak he had found in his gear, and her bare feet were now covered with rough boots. She looked like a survivor now, not a prisoner. They followed an old hunter's trail through the trees. Ethan knew where he was going. A small outpost a few kilometers away. There was a man there who owed him a favor. A pilot, maybe their only chance. As they walked, Sarah looked around nervously. "I don't want to be caught again." "You won't," Ethan said. She hesitated. "I remember more now." Ethan looked at her. "What do you mean?" "My memories," she whispered. "They were broken, but now they're coming back." Ethan listened carefully. Sarah touched her neck where the tracker had once been. "They didn't just beat me, they erased parts of me with drugs, with machines. They didn't want me to remember who I was." "But you do now?" She nodded. "Pieces. I remember my home, my mother's voice, a necklace I wore. It had a blue crystal. I lost it when they first took me." She blinked fast as if trying not to cry. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get you back everything they took." 2 hours passed. The sky grew brighter, the forest thinned. In the distance, a tall metal tower stood above the trees. The outpost. But Ethan slowed down. Something was wrong. He stopped and scanned. The ground. No birds, no wind, no voices. Then he saw it. Scorch marks on the trees. "Fresh," he whispered. "Stay here." Sarah crouched behind a fallen log. Ethan moved ahead quietly, creeping toward the outpost. When he reached the clearing, his heart dropped. The outpost was gone, burned to ash. The pilot's ship, destroyed. Smoke still rose from the ruins. Bodies lay on the ground. Whoever had come here had come for blood. Sarah stepped up behind him. "Is that where we were going?" Ethan nodded. It was. She looked at the wreck. "They got here first." "They knew where we were going," Ethan said. She gasped. "Then they're not just hunting me." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "They're hunting both of us." Suddenly, a sharp click echoed from behind. Ethan spun around, too late. A stun blast hit him square in the chest. He dropped, shaking. Sarah screamed. 3 figures stepped from the trees. New slavers, heavily armed, cold eyes, armor black as night. One grabbed Sarah. She fought again, bit his hand, kicked his leg, but the second man hit her hard in the stomach. She crumbled. "Put her in the cage," the leader barked. Ethan, groaning on the ground, reached for his blaster. The third man kicked it away. "You're causing too much trouble, human," the leader said. "She belongs to our buyers, and you'll be sold too." The slaver reached for cuffs. Ethan's hand suddenly shot up, holding his blade. With one motion, he stabbed the man's leg. The slaver howled in pain. Ethan jumped to his feet, grabbed the blaster, and fired 3 quick shots. One slaver dropped. The others ran for cover. Ethan turned to Sarah. "Run!" She tried, but stumbled. He caught her, threw her arm over his shoulder, and they ran together, into the forest away from the flames. They ran for what felt like hours. Ethan's heart pounded. Sarah leaned on him, coughing. Finally, they reached a cave deep inside a rocky hill. He helped her lie down and checked her injuries. Nothing broken, but she was bruised and terrified. I can't keep running, she said weakly. Yes, you can, Ethan replied. We'll keep moving. Together. Tears filled her eyes. Why are you doing this? He looked at her. Because when I found you, you were alone. Covered in mud. No hope. Everyone else left you. But I saw you. I chose to help. Sierra reached for his hand and held it tightly. For the first time, she didn't feel like a lost, hunted creature. She felt safe. The cave was quiet. No sound except for the soft breathing of two souls hiding from the galaxy's cruelty. Ethan sat near the entrance, blaster resting on his lap. His clothes were torn, face bruised, arms scraped. His body was tired, but his eyes stayed sharp. He listened to every wind shift, every leaf, every breath. Behind him, Sarah slept, curled up near the fire. Her face, once blank with fear, now looked peaceful. Safe. For the first time since he'd found her in the mud, her body wasn't tense. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He kept watch. Not because he was afraid of being hunted, but because someone finally depended on him. By morning, the rain had returned, light and gentle. Birds chirped in the trees. The world didn't care that two people were running for their lives. Ethan stood and stretched. His back ached. His ribs were sore from where the slaver kicked him. But he didn't complain. Sierra woke slowly. Her eyes opened, blinking at the soft light. Morning, he said. She sat up and rubbed her arms. We're still alive. We are. Ethan nodded. She smiled faintly. Because of you. Ethan looked away, embarrassed. Because of us. He handed her a water pouch. She drank slowly, then looked at the sky. They'll keep looking. I know. Sarah tilted her head. You could leave me. You could go back to your life. Ethan knelt beside her. That life ended the moment I saw you in the mud. She looked at him confused. I had no one, he said softly. I wandered, took jobs, stayed quiet. I didn't care if I lived or died. But when I saw you were alone, helpless, and something in me woke up. She said nothing. I couldn't leave you then. I won't leave you now. Tears filled her eyes. She reached into her cloak and pulled out something, a small, cracked blue crystal hanging from a worn string. My mother gave me this, she whispered. I thought it was lost forever. But it was inside the coat. You wrapped me in. Ethan smiled. Then I guess it found its way home. She clutched it close. Later that day, they began walking again. No more running, just walking, not toward escape, but toward hope. Ethan knew a place, far off, beyond the hills, past the old tunnels, a human village that welcomed outsiders. A place where slavers feared to go, a place with peace. It would take days, but they had time. As they walked, Sierra asked softly, What happens when we get there? You start a new life, Ethan replied. She stopped walking. And you? He turned. I'll stay if you want me to. She stepped closer. I do. Ethan nodded. That night they camped near a quiet stream. The stars above were clear. No smoke. No engines. No fear. Sarah looked at the stars and whispered, I used to pray to the stars. Every night in that cage. I'd ask for someone to see me just once. She looked at Ethan. You did? Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't strong. He was just a man who made a choice. But sometimes, one choice can change everything. 3 months later, the small village was quiet. Children laughed in the distance. Markets buzzed with voices. No slavers. No soldiers. Just life. Inside a small cabin, Ethan worked on fixing a broken heater. He wore clean clothes now. a warm smile on his face. From the kitchen, Sierra called, "Dinner's ready." He walked in. The smell of soup filled the air. Sierra stood at the table, setting down 2 bowls. Her bruises were gone. Her hair was clean and shining, her eyes were bright. She looked alive. "Sit," she said with a smile. "You've worked enough." Ethan sat. "You're getting bossy." "I learned from the best." They laughed. As they ate, Sarah reached across the table and held his hand. "You saved me." Ethan shook his head. "You saved me too." She nodded, eyes misty. "Thank you for choosing to stay." He squeezed her hand gently. "I wouldn't be anywhere else." Outside, stars lit up the night sky. And in one small cabin in a faraway village, a girl who once lay in the mud with no clothes, no hope and no name was finally home because a human saw her, helped her, and stayed.